Welcome to the Emporia Public Schools podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Allison Anderson Harder, Superintendent. This podcast is our way to provide students, staff, parents, and community members easy access to information on a variety of topics. Once you've listened to an episode, we encourage you to use the electronic link to provide feedback or ideas about the episode to which you just listened to, or to share ideas for future episodes. Today, we are visiting with Mr. Paul Beadles, Director of Technology. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Doing fantastic. How are you, Allison?
I'm good. And Paul has had a very busy day, so we're glad that he is squeezing us into this podcast. So, but we knew that he would be an enthusiastic interviewee. So
you
glad
guys
to have
keep us running.
It's not always us. So talk to us, Paul, and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to work for Emporia Public Schools.
So I am the technology director. I've been at Emporia Public Schools for a little over 20 years. If you want to go back, this is weird. I remember sitting in middle school, middle of the 90s, and our tech guy for the district came through, and I just thought that was so cool that he gets to go around and work on computers all day. Went to school originally to be a teacher, thinking, kind of in the STEM areas, science, coding, computers, and changed to computer science, and then scored a job being a tech director. So, I started off just regular tech guy doing some website editing and then helping implement some large projects in the district, and just kept growing what we were doing here.
That's great. Well, so you really understand all the different jobs, all the different tasks that are involved with technology.
Well, I thought I did, and then podcasting came along. So luckily we were able to
You're
find
welcome.
We brought some new team members on this year that are really helping with some of the newer technologies that have come about.
Yes,
so that's
thank you,
been
Garrett.
amazing.
Garrett Hayes, shout out. And we're going to interview Garrett. So you don't know
It's
that,
coming
Garrett, yet,
around.
but
All
it's
right.
it's happening. So just so you know, that's coming. And we'll surprise you. We'll let you know about 10 minutes before we're going to interview you. You'll have it set up and find out
He
you
can
we're interviewing.
record, edit it, and do it all in real time.
I know. You know what? He might even start changing his answers. We're on to you, Garrett. We'll record that on our end, too. Paul, getting back to our topic, tell us about your team and the types of technology they're responsible for.
Absolutely. So I don't know what we're not responsible for. So I think that's where we'll start. Recent changes that I've seen that come through that our system engineers are handling, both Tori and Dwight, Internet of Things. When you think all the bond construction, all the new HVAC that went in, all that's network based, all that reports back to a server for web-based controls, data analytics on what's going on with the HVAC systems. You start thinking about lights coming in on IoT. Just everything that we've been doing. Even your clocks are going to sync to some kind of internet-based system that's keeping the same time in every clock. And we've seen those technologies sort of shift and change, and those things that our system engineers are handling. And then we have, technicians that are covering all the student needs and classroom needs that are happening. So as technologies age, they're either replacing it with some kind of newer technology, helping the new person who's learning old technology, maybe helping somebody that's coming in and they're very familiar with what they used to have at another district. They're coming into our district and those tools are different. So they're meeting. So not only are we fixing things, installing new things, but we're also training people. It's usually on the fly. And sometimes it's just they see that opportunity to share something they know or something that'll make a teacher's life easier or a student's life easier, or maybe even somebody in the business office or transportation or maintenance, all those areas that technology is now just kind of there. Lots of opportunities for the team to work with people. We've got, I want to say, 3 new team members in the last 6 months. So we've got some really great talent. I've been excited about that, as we had a lot of wisdom leave with the employees that have been here for 20 plus years retiring. So it's been amazing.
Wow. Well, and, I think about that if staff members leave, one of the things that they recognize pretty quickly is that how awesome the technology team is in Emporia Public Schools, because they don't realize everything that the technology team does behind the scenes and just works seamlessly and make sure, just like you said, make teachers' lives easier, make sure that we're providing for students so their learning is maximized. But then when they come back, one of the reasons that they come back is because of the technology department.
Yeah, we do have, every time we close out a ticket, which is if somebody's struggling, they put in a ticket. And then we can assign that to somebody, go out there. And usually we try to group that up just for efficiency. So if one building's got 15, we'll send maybe 2 people out to work on them. And when they close them out, there's a little survey. Hey, how'd we do today? What could we do better? And I do find it funny. Staff are so much nicer than students. Students always score us lower. Like, my Chromebook wasn't fixed immediately. I was like, well, sometimes it does take us a little bit, but Yeah, it's just kind of interesting perspective. You get different insights from others. They're upset because we fixed it and now they have to do the state assessment. Like, you fixed it, now I have to go do an assessment. It's like, oh, this is always interesting
And
perspectives.
and what they need to realize is that they would have to do the state assessment
You're
regardless
gonna
of
get it no matter what.
yes, what device. Absolutely. The state assessments are important. So as you were talking, I was reflecting also on we had an opportunity for the legislative audit. So that was something that was being piloted a few years ago. And it was an interesting experience because it didn't quite fit with technology. Sometimes the legislature has different ideas about what's happening in schools and with technology. And then what they expect to happen or expect feedback on is a little bit different because it doesn't quite fit. So do you want to just kind of in a nutshell talk about that experience?
Well, I'm glad that we got to help the state. I think from that experience, a lot came out with not only just KSDE starting to get involved because this was through KASB. So you got some different state organizations. And I think there is definitely brought to light that K-12 is different when it comes to cybersecurity. In some ways, we need more cybersecurity than maybe a private business with what we're dealing with. But on the other hand, we may not necessarily have the resources or funds available. Sometimes it's just staffing, manpower. So I think a lot came out of it, and it just, to me, felt like it kind of brought this to the forefront. So KSDE's been starting to make resources available to us, different grants. You've seen CISA get involved and start giving some resources and make that available to K-12 education. So the audit itself was a fun experience. It was in the middle of COVID and bond construction. So when I thought it'd be more like an experience of, hey, what are you doing for these best practices? How can we help you improve on those? And no, it was more like an audit where they just asked lots of questions, wanted lots of documentation, and then we got a report back telling us where we were doing things right and where we were maybe doing things correct for K-12, but maybe not right for business. Small kids don't need 12-character complicated passwords.
Yes.
So that was one where I kind of drug my heels on, whoa, we'll let them sign in with a QR code or a simple password for their work.
Yeah, so we'll just back up just a little bit on KSDE. So that's Kansas Department of Education, and then CISA.
Yep, that's a federal one.
Okay, and it's okay if you can't, but the
Man,
federal
I am
one
blanking
it's
on
okay.
CISA.
So what is that? What does it do? What is the organization?
So they're looking at cybersecurity infrastructure, sort of for the United States with private and business. So they'll release announcements about, hey, there's a new 0-day exploit. You need to patch if you're using these services. You need to apply these patches. So CISA.gov they're here to try to help America, I feel like, be a more successful when it comes to implementing your cybersecurity and maintaining what you're trying to do with your infrastructure.
Well, and you've been really good about cybersecurity, and I think that's something you've kept on the forefront for us. And so you might just talk like what maybe the top 3 things that we've done recently that you're really proud of for cybersecurity, because keeping our students' information safe, our teachers' information, all of that has been really important.
I think the biggest push we did is taking a step back. We knew that, it's easy to think about the systems that you touch, like Gmail, and making sure that all that is behind a 2-step verification. But then we took a step back and said, what if we look at all the systems that maybe the auditors didn't look at? And so we started looking at all these different platforms, some of which we really like, but they are just a little bit older and don't support things like 2-step verification. And so we've been going back through, working with those companies about how we can put that extra layer of protection in. So recently just started doing that with our Skyward platform, where users logins will use their Google login. So that gives them that 2-step verification, extra lock to their account. I think we've really doubled down on trying to make an emphasis when we bring employees in. This is what phishing emails will look like. And we show them real world examples. We give them real world examples of what we've run into in our organization, how it was handled, like, hey, this actually happened. Here's what the end user did really well. Here's what we did really well. And then here's the parts that didn't go very well, so that they know, and emphasizing, like, if you make a mistake, don't feel ashamed or embarrassed to let us know. Like, the sooner we can take that incident that happened, react to it, and verify that nothing happened, like, it's better all around. So when you think about a 2-step verification across other platforms, I'm really working on our cybersecurity training for our end users. And you asked me for one more, and I know they're out there.
And that's okay. You can just kind of think about that in the back of your mind. But those are great examples.
Yeah, I think some of the other pieces we're looking at is the simple 1-button lockdown for a building. So not necessarily cybersecurity, but paralleled into physical security.
Sure.
But how quickly can I lock a site down, or how quickly can I communicate if there's an issue in a building? So trying to make it
Absolutely.
easier. If somebody were to need assistance in their classroom, if a kid fell down and they're like, "Hey, I need you to get somebody in your help," and really emphasizing also it's okay to call 911. Technology is always kind of there, and just trying to make it more of a focus so that people understand how to use it when those things happen.
Absolutely. Well, this is a great segue then into construction. So, thinking about those have been some challenges with technology and integrating with construction in different buildings. So, talk a little bit about the process and maybe, some highlights there.
Okay. I definitely feel like I can read a blueprint better than I could before we started this. So that's been fun working with architects and or working with McCall Gordon when they're building. I think one of the biggest things I like is I can see working with different McCall Gordon. As we go to building, they start to learn what we want, and they can anticipate, and they can actually start giving you the heads up. Hey, I'm noticing this is coming together this way. That's a little bit different than what we did previously. Is that what you're wanting? And we can get ahead and resolve some issues. It's just there's a lot when you think about what it takes to put together a room, and when you think about how you pull that equipment in. So for some people, they're like, "Oh, you added 6 classrooms." I'm like, "Well, you actually added another $5,000 network switch to power all the equipment. How do we connect that in? If you build a new IT closet, that's fiber optics between those to connect that in. Is there a way to stretch and not add additional closets, which add additional expense?" It seems like whenever you talk technology and construction, those dollar signs just keep adding up. So a lot of it
very quickly.
yeah, a lot of it was there's what we want and what we need, and trying to find that balance while still creating classrooms that look amazing and that are easy for teachers to understand where things are. Yeah.
Well, I think thinking about the systems and how they come together. So obviously we're not doing construction in every building all at the same time. So thinking about our phone systems, that has been another challenge that you wouldn't tie necessarily phones with technology. Paul's laughing here because he's having some very fond memories, I'm sure. So maybe talk a little bit too about that process.
I feel like that's been a growth opportunity for me, because I thought phones are phones, and then phones are not phones. So that's what's exciting. So we know what we wanted to come out of it as we did construction. We know we wanted phones where you can consistently walk into a room and know where the phone is. And this is going to sound weird, but when phones end up kind of anywhere in a room because they plug them in anywhere, and if you step into a room because maybe you need to make a 911 call and you can't find the phone. You got kids in there, you've got furniture in there, and maybe they slid their library book thing over, and now it's just covering where the phone sits on the counter. So you just don't see it. We wanted to make sure as we came through and focused on, let's get the phones consistently mounted near a door. But when I mount all the phones by the door, that doesn't necessarily make them easy for staff members to utilize if they're trying to call a parent or call the office. So we started looking at, so we also need a phone system that I can have that by the door, and then a way that they can access the phone system. So that's where your cloud-based systems started to come into play. How can I take a telephone and make that a digital app on your laptop or on your cell phone, which is really neat. But then brings its own challenges into play when, for years and years we operated where every room was an extension number. So if you dial, 2244, you always got technology help desk. Well, now the technology help desk is actually somebody's phone number. And as they move, that phone number kind of goes with them in this web-based system. So we are still spending a lot of time trying to determine the best way that we can achieve everything everybody wants. So consistency for everybody, like the secretaries who are calling those rooms that we're paging in, as well as the accessibility for our staff to be able to call from any device or call from home. If I needed to make a late night call to a parent for some reason, I can do that from an app. And so that just adds some safeguards there for everybody, because you're not giving your cell phone out to the world. I don't know if we want to talk about that, but
that's reality. That's and that's also privacy, because our teachers are certified staff members who would be making that phone call. There's, they have their professional life and they have their personal life, and their professional life doesn't begin at 8 and end at 3:10. So it
helps kind of bridge that. It gives them a way. Like if I was a coach out on a field and something happened, I needed to call a parent, you could do that through the app, and it keeps it all within the phone system side. So
sure, maintains confidentiality.
Yep, there's some nice benefits to it, but like phones, like you would think it's a telephone. Why would we train people on phones? Everybody knows what a phone is. But when you start adding in these pieces and then the complexity of trying to make it parallel with bond construction and trying to keep those pieces together was also surprisingly difficult, because suddenly we have half the district on an old phone system not able to call the way they used to a new phone system. And in the middle of all of this, various state laws came into play again, or federal laws. I'm not sure which level they're coming from, but when we dial 911, the phone needs to tell 911 where they are. So that's a new law that we needed to become compliant with as we put the phone systems in. And you also had the changes for the 811. So we went from where you could dial a basic 7-digit phone number to now needing to dial 10-digit numbers. So we had simultaneously changes in how phone systems work, while also implementing new phones and trying to bring an old system along with that and keep it operating throughout, everything that's happening.
And that's a lot for staff members to keep in their heads as they're starting, opening a classroom and starting the day and making sure that they're doing everything that they need to be doing.
Absolutely. They don't understand why the phone doesn't ring like it's supposed to. And you're like, well, there's actually a lot. Or where'd my voicemail go? It's like, well,
Right,
your voicemail should
right.
be in your inbox. Oh, wait, nope. You're at a building that we haven't got upgraded yet. So your voicemail is actually sitting on the phone and you have to put a code in to get it out.
Well, and working on making sure that we get everybody all on the same platform and they can get their voicemails in their inbox or whatever it is that they need to access that. That's really important. So thinking about just putting some numbers, so with more than 4,100 students, approximately 950 staff members, that is a lot to keep track of. You mentioned work orders. So talk about if somebody has a problem, how do you know that they have a problem, and then how do they fit in the queue?
Exactly. So we have sort of two main avenues for reaching out for tech support. We have a help desk that you can call, and we have the ability where you just send an email to work orders, and that will initiate a ticket. And I've heard a lot of joking lately because I reply back to people, hey, you're number 192 in queue. And they're like, what do you guys have going on? And I said, well, we do try to prioritize tickets. Anytime a call or a ticket comes in, typically I like calls because usually you can help the person and you can be done. They do tend, I think, to get to skip up a little bit, but we prioritize and we look at safety and security issues first. So ticket number 198, if it comes in saying that I didn't hear the all call announcement in my room, is actually going to get to skip kind of to the front of the line because we consider that safety and security. And then we kind of take that next step down to academics. And then we look at business operations. And then unfortunately, and I know there's a lot of coaches out there that want some projects done that I think will be really neat when it comes to the athletic world, but they do tend to kind of get slotted down towards the bottom as we do prioritization. But some really cool projects there. I think our biggest thing is just always trying to be open to people. If they catch you in the hallway because they have a problem, my go-to response is usually, I'm going to fix this. Will you send us the ticket? Knowing that, trying to make that judgment call. Can I get this done in a few minutes or is it going to be something bigger? And sometimes if they're bigger, you're like, hey, we've got to kick this up. We're going to have to come back. We have a couple of projects. Custodian caught me just today and was like, I put in a ticket 4 weeks ago about this. And I was like, dude, I'm hearing you. I see the problem. But we're going to have to pull cable through your ceilings to make this fix happen. And it is temporarily working, although not the way you like it. Nobody wants the phone to sit on top of the copier. It really should be mounted to a wall. This is in a break room and the phone just kind of lives on the copier. I was like, that's not what anybody wants. Not quite sure how we got there, but we're going to come back and we're going to get it fixed. But so things like that do, unfortunately, at the start of school year, keep getting kind of pushed back and back as new things come in. But I think we keep the team busy. We hit the ground running as they come in. It's like, get in, grab your coffee, grab your donut and get out. A lot of sugar. There's a lot of sugar.
Well, we do see technology is always on the move. So they are out. You see them going in and out of district office and out to buildings. And I saw Garrett and Noel the other day at the high school. They were working on something. So always somewhere, always doing something.
Yeah, they were implementing a new security camera system that we started that journey 2 years ago, but thanks to COVID shipping delays. But everybody's rolled their sleeves up. And I think we've gotten about 80% completion across the district on that one.
Awesome. Well, talk to us about, is there anything else that you want to share that you haven't been asked?
You asked me so many questions.
I think we covered it.
Man, Allison, you put me on the spot. What are we missing? I'll remember about 2 a.m. I'll be like, why? Why did we not talk about?
We'll have other opportunities.
Always other opportunities.
Really the focus is, increasing safety and security. That's the main, and that's always where, and you're great about making sure that is our focus with technology. And then how do we make all of this work? And then as we're going through construction, that people are getting what they need.
I think the one thing that we didn't cover that I like that we did this summer, and it was a new thing, it was a little experimental, and I appreciate the grace that Lindell and his enrollment team gave us. We did sort of an early bird enrollment for parents who have already set up PowerSchool accounts. So we sent that information out to them because we have their emails on file from the PowerSchool parent account saying, hey, you can enroll your kid today right through the parent portal, which starts bringing parents back into a platform where they can see their kids' attendance, their kids' grades, their lunch balances. It really kind of brings it together. I don't want to sound insulting to the InfoSnap letter, but I don't want to type that many numbers. I want to just log into the parent portal, click enroll my kid, and be going. And that's what that gives parents.
Oh, good. Yeah, we want to make it as easy as possible for enrollment.
So that was a new thing we did this year, and we didn't highlight it, but I thought it went pretty good. I want to say 400, 350 students were enrolled early that way, and I think gives us a lot of promise. I'm assuming we were planning on doing it again next year. Learned a few things, so the instructions we sent out will be a little clearer in a few areas as questions came in as we sent that information out. But
all right. Well, one thing we know about Lindell is he loves new ideas to implement, and if they're innovative, he loves them even more.
On the fly, right before enrollment starts, hey Lindell, I want to make this change. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Worst case, it goes horribly wrong, and we just don't do that again.
And it was the best case. It worked out great.
It worked out pretty well.
Yes. And Lindell, just making the motion of his head blowing up. So it worked out. Anything else, Paula, you'd like to highlight before we close?
I think every department's just the basis of the people they have in there. And I have a fantastic team. They make me look good. And you can see that in the feedback we get from everybody. So I really appreciate the team I have.
We have a great technology department. Well, thank you for leading the department, Paul, and for being here today, especially on a little shorter notice than what we would normally provide our guests.
Keep me from sweating out in the heat mountain cameras, so we're good.
We waited until, it's time to get a little hotter in the day. Well, thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Allison, for having me today.
We will end on our Emporia Public Schools mission statement. We engage, we empower, we inspire. Thank you for listening, and watch for upcoming episodes.